Welcome everyone to this seminar. Today, we will be dividing our conversation, our talk, into three separate parts. There is a program. On the hour, we will start with a new theme. First of all, starting to discuss the sort of holistic approach to the project that we will be presenting today. Secondly, talking about character. And the third element at 3 o'clock will be about platforms and distribution. My name is Eli Bø, and I am Professor of Design for Film and Media here at SKH. And it's my great pleasure to introduce to you today Guillermo, who's sitting here beside me. Before we allow him to talk, I'm just going to say a little bit about how we will be conducting this seminar today. This will be a conversation between the two of us about a wonderful project, a work in progress project that Guillermo has been working on for the past year or so. It's important because this is a visual project. It's important that we can show our visual material at high quality. So we will share some of the material that we're going to look at on Zoom, but the moving images we're going to show, we will be sharing on Vimeo. So that means that you will be going in and out of this meeting in order to see the material. When you go out to watch a film, please switch your image off. Switch off your camera on your computer. There will be links in the chat for these film clips that we're going to be watching. And when you come back into the Zoom room again, it would be wonderful for us if you could switch your camera on again, so we know that you're in there. You're back in with us. Also, if you have questions, you can put the questions in the chat, and by putting the questions in the chat, we will be able to use those to answer those questions first. We will have Q&A sessions at the end of each piece. Can I just ask you, can you see me now? I can only see a black screen. Please let me know, someone out there. Can you see me?
No, I can't see you.
Yep. Black screen.
Luckily, we've got technical support, so you will see me again soon, but I can just keep talking and explain that it's important for us that we have a conversation about this project. So therefore, we're very, very happy for you to ask questions, but put the questions in the chat, and we will approach those questions first when we get there. I'm just going to have to ask you to wait for a little moment because our technician has run out to get some more equipment so that you will be able to see us again in a few minutes, hopefully. This is a challenging session in some ways because we are operating with different computers, different material, different films, different visual bits and pieces, but it's very, very important for the presentation that we can get all these things working. So it's worth waiting for us to be back on screen. Well, you can pretend you're on the radio, and I will use this time to say that last year I ran a course together with Assistant Professor Katrin Brännström from the Scenkonst department at this school. And the course was a one-year course which was called Narrative Design. It was a course for designers with previous experience. It was a course at advanced level, and the idea of the course was to explore the areas between production design and scenography for stage, and character design, and the sort of the crossover areas and the areas between these defined design disciplines. We wanted to look at how linear narratives and how interactivity might affect the way we design spaces for storytelling. And one thing that was very interesting to us in the course, but that's also very interesting for us as designers for narratives, is how space and place and architecture and objects are used narratively, are used as storytelling tools. So in this course, we worked with different kinds of concept development models. We worked with world building. We worked a lot with visual research. We worked with skills and tools like technical drawing and model making and all these sort of things to scale. But we also worked with other visualizing methods. And one of the very important things we did was we introduced game engines in the process, in the design process, which was very exciting for us and also quite a new thing here in this school, because game engines, as we know, are famously used in the games industry, but more and more relevant as design tools within films and other moving image disciplines. So for the first time, we seriously looked at how game engines can be used outside the games world, I suppose, and especially in a world building and an environment design context. Another thing we did was that we used the audio-visual essay or the videographic essay as a sort of documentation and process platform as well. And for those of you master students out there, this is a platform that we are very keen to introduce you all to, as it is a way of articulating and contemplating and exploring your ideas, not just through writing, not just through drawing, but also through moving images and other sorts of images and sound, as well as writing and thinking. Okay, this is a little bit of context to let you know how Guillermo and I met each other, because Guillermo was a significant part of that course. He was a student on the course. And the project that we are going to look at today is a course that is a project that he started on that course. So it started, I suppose, as a games design, game engine exercise, I suppose. I suppose that's where it started, but it's grown and has become a huge project that includes both space, environment, storytelling, characters, and everything else on several different platforms. Okay, I think we're back on camera now, and I think I'm going to hand you over to Guillermo. And I'm so pleased that you are here and that you want to show us your project and we can have a conversation about it. But who are you?
Who am I? Well, thank you. Thank you, Ellie. Such a nice introduction. I'm really humbled by being in this place. And I see a lot of wonderful people out there in the audience, like people I appreciate a lot, that I really care for what they are doing. And well, I'm really happy to have you all here. I'm a Mexican artist. I have a 15 years, between 20 and 15 years of experience working with the image, with design, with storytelling, with scale, with the use of color, with stories to tell for for posterity, as we think in Mexico that we usually try to do that. And I first started as an architect my career, and then later, after a while, I became very aware that I had to do what I was meant to do since the very beginning, which it was pursue a career in storytelling. But for me, when I was doing architecture, it was I was using the same method behind, which it was to tell a story. It was just that I was using architectural methods to convey the message. But later, I was like, at some point, I had a crisis, and I thought, like, okay, but you wanted to write poetry all over. So I came back, and I thought, okay, maybe I can start as my new education. So I went into the film school of UNAM in Mexico to study filmmaking. And yeah, one thing happened after the other. That, of course, made me understand that production design was very handy at that moment, and also very close to my heart, because I could work with space, time, form, function in many levels within storytelling. And that's a bit what happened with my life. Around 2018, 2019, I worked with Eugenio Caballero. I will show an image of him later. A production designer from Mexico, working in Roma, or Roma, I could say, or Pat's Labyrinth. I was getting some mentoring sessions from him, and that really helped me to move on in my career. Later, I came to Sweden, and not long after I came back to Sweden in 2019, I met Ellie. I met you, and then we got along in our ideas, and I was very lucky to be part of the narrative design course, which is a wonderful course, very utopic, if I might even say it, project, but beautiful, and I had a wonderful year there together with the other narrative designers. And this project started a year ago, and it was a very interesting process because it started as one assignment of that course, and that assignment was just for 2 weeks. It's very important to mention, and it was about to learn how to use Unreal in our designs, and how to, as another tool for our toolbox that we have as designers and as creators in general. So, but what it happened is that I kept using the same idea and moving forward through the different levels of the course until the very end, when we had our personal project. And then I made this project being my personal project of that year. So I think we can maybe start.
I think we should start.
Okay.
I just wanted to pick up on one thing you mentioned. Say again which production designer you had contact with.
Eugenio Caballero.
That's right.
Yes.
And the films Roma and Pan's Labyrinth, for example, are of course huge sort of hits,
yes.
Not just among filmmakers, but certainly about production designers,
yes.
Because the work that he does is very rich and very dense and very full in ways of environments and atmosphere, and of course lots of spatial storytelling. But you're going to get back to that.
Yes.
But I would just want everyone to sort of to hear that, because I think, well, I don't want to be superficial, but we're also talking to a Mexican today, and I think it will become clear.
I hope.
Okay, let's start with our first clip. Just to remind you, you will find a link in the chat. You can click on that link. You can go out and watch the clip on Vimeo, and then come back into this Zoom room. Okay, Guillermo, do you want to give us an introduction to what we're going to see?
Yes, this clip is part of the audiovisual essay that we did for the narrative design course. But I think it's a very good introduction to some elements of the project. And you're gonna see from the around half of it, and then until the end of the video, and then we come back and then we can discuss what we have seen.
So we're going to watch for about 8 minutes.
Yes.
And then we'll meet again in this space. Welcome back to those of you who are back. We've had a little bit of problem logging on to the Vimeo screening, we've noticed, for some of you, but hopefully most of you have been able to see this little introduction. Anyway.
Is there anyone that could see it? Maybe we can ask.
Were you able to see it? Just let us know.
Yes.
Yes, some of you were at least, and you will have the link and you will be able to see it later. But what we'll do now is we'll go back to the beginning and look at how this project started, and we will also contextualize it a bit. What I think is important to say straight away is that this is a project that is intended for several platforms.
Yes. Yes.
What are we going to see next?
Yes, now we are going to see I'm going to share some of the images or the process, how this happened, basically, like the visual process behind the designs and the concept and the story and everything. So I'm going to share my screen, and then we're going to see some like presentation I have. So yes, this is welcome to the official seminar. This is the outline for today. It's important to remember that it's 3 hours, and we're gonna work mainly now in the concept and the visual storytelling, or how it happened. Then the second hour is about characters in space, and the third hour is about platforms and distribution, which is my biggest question that I had through the process of developing, and that we could get a good answer to what was about that we were doing. So what you just saw is part of the environments and part of the intention behind the story. The story is a Nordic Gothic horror story. It's about traveling in time, but not necessarily from a science fiction perspective, more from how a family in Sweden go through millennia, or could be millennia, but in this case through centuries, and how their descendants are being affected by these events on their lives, and how these change the course of each individual. In this case, of the main character, Oscar. So you saw this video now. You could see the intention of behind the project, which is to merge different types of mediums into a singular experience. That's about. It's easy to say, but in reality, it's a whole process of understanding how camera work is being implemented, how space is being approached, how scale is being approached, how character is being approached. And in the video that you saw, the first part, we have a steady camera, which comes from the cinematic language from a historical perspective. But in the second part, you have an exploration of an environment, and you have a character that is doing that exploration, and you control that character through a video game control, you can call it, but it's the point here is that you have the control. And this project is very important in consideration of world building, because without the concept and the idea of creating worlds, this will not happen to me, at least. This project will not be what it is. So this is a bit of what I work with. This is visual research, and then I will talk more about Eugenio Caballero. But this is, I want to show you, this is one part of my Pinterest account. And you could see for the titles there, the type of themes that I'm exploring. And it's like having a constant library, a visual library that you go and exactly like with books, that you go and you grasp the ideas, you understand how it works, the construction of images, and you can really apply this in architecture, film, design, graphic design, 3D design. It doesn't really matter once you understand how to manipulate and create images and understand images as well. So all this project, as I said before, started as a single level design assignment, which it was two weeks here in Stockholm's Konstnärliga Högskola. And the idea was to do a level design for a video game. From the very, very beginning, my idea was to merge German expressionist cinema, survival horror video games, and Gothic literature. And from the very, very beginning, I mean, I'm talking about a year ago, I started thinking in terms of setting, of location, and theme. And the setting for me was like, I didn't know so much about the story because I had the world building as a method. But then I understood that I wanted to have some sort of rural area where there was a country house in the top of a hill, and that I wanted to explore contemporary times. There was no more than that. When it comes to location, it was a hidden rural area in Sweden. That's it. And when it comes to the theme, it was, I wanted to begin to explore the moonlight and just how light affects the space and the contrast between light and shadow. And yes, I mean, the purpose and the features at the beginning were really like, I mean, it sounds almost like very childish at the moment when I look back how everything started, because the idea was to explore something very conceptual to some extent, and from another world, another epoch that you might think that maybe resonate less to our times. But in my perspective, well, we have been talking between me and Ellie, of course, that also there is a need sometimes to tell stories, like a necessity. And I imagine that the German expressionist cinema happened for a necessity, maybe the historical context. But for me, I feel like it was very important to explore light and shadow within the human soul. And yeah, these images also, they are like really the very, very beginning, and it's very sketchy, but they say a lot about the intentions of the project. And at the end, like, for example, this chiaroscuro lighting from that trace back to the Renaissance period with painting, you could grasp an idea that at the end, the 3D design in Unreal had these explorations behind. Yeah, so this is important for me just to mention. The way I work is I work a lot with text and how words will help me to come up with visual ideas. So I wrote a text in that moment that was about the environment. And if you see the words, I mean, it's big old trees, fog, nightmare, beautiful, rats, a small country house, all furnishing, all mirrors. There is not necessarily a script, but there is an intention of a visual storytelling already. And then the story will emerge from this visual research. This is the level design, how it was done. For me, it was more like a designing. Of course, I mean, I'm sorry if there are some game design experts in the room. I'm doing something very wrong here, but this was the way in that moment, without any experience in game design, I took it. But for me, it was more like a journey. It was like designing a journey or a path, like Odysseus' journey, or like and of course like Homer, like in a poetic, epic journey. That's what I felt like I had to do. And at the beginning, I understood that it was just I was just planning the beginning of a big voyage, which it was Descendants. And that was the conclusion after those 2 weeks. And these are some of the images that came up at that time.
Just say something about that character.
Yeah, the character.
What we're looking at there.
The character is a prototype character. So whenever you see this friend, the white robot is the character to be designed later on in another stage. So of course this happened like a year ago.
But it's very important that we all know that this is not the character that you designed into this.
Yes, but in the way that I work, it was that I would approach first environment, a later character. But I mean, in some way, there was a moment later on in the project. There was a part on the script where we have two characters facing each other and talking to each other, and we put that in a face mocap workshop, and that already was here. It's just that here is like in a prototype stage, but this meeting actually happened on real life, so to speak. Yeah. So
great. We have to move on to production design.
Production design. Mm-hmm. So yeah. So we had a long. We had 2 months or a month and a half maybe to come up with the production design project for the course, and I took this project and I moved on with it, and I decided to explore 3 environments from the very beginning, which I call them Nightmare, Netherworld, and Trauma. I had an idea already at that time of what kind of events will happen in the story, and basically the story is about a character going from the contemporary times to 19th century Sweden to explore his past and his family and the issues on his life and why that happened. And in that journey, he come into this world called the Netherworld, and then he will understand that some horrible events happened in his family in the 19th century, and that those traumas were carried on into his life. In New York, by the way, being one of these families that went out from Sweden at the beginning of the 20th century and end up living in the Americas. So this is part of the geography. And for me, it was very important to explore geography and topography. The topography of the place is quite big. It's not like open world big, but it is a good size. If you see in this image, for example, in the top, in where there is a yellow square on top, you can see a tiny house. So that's a bit of the scale of the landscape if you compare to the house. Yeah, this is topography, and then you have here from now and on. The difference how we're doing it.
We have
to move on. Yes. So we learn a system here together with Ellie, a 5-level system where we go from the universe to define the place visually, and that's what I did. I started to define the universe, then the world. So you go in scale, like narrowing down and like focusing and like a microscope onto moving to a character level and props and detail. So there is a huge amount of images here, but what I would like to mention about the method is that for me, the constant visual research is never finished. It's something that it keeps going and on. And I didn't do this alone. I had an architectural Swedish advisor, which was helping me through this process, because I'm not an expert, of course. But through help and through going to libraries, going into the internet, I could come up with this, which is for example, this is some of the designs of the buildings, which were completely, I mean, it was my architecture background really come on handy in this moment, because I could just design the buildings as they were, like to be done in real life. But then, of course, I merged this with also finding locations. For example, this house is in Skansen, and that was one very important location for the trauma part of the exercise. These are the pictures I took the first time I went into the location. You will see a video later on with this, but already in a film clip. I will just go a bit faster. But here, like, it comes character already. And you could see here the intentions behind. I will go to character, architecture. Here, for example, you start to think about light, and this reference of painting was very important for me, because I understood also that Sweden had this already in art history and in literature. So I was just recovering a part of how storytelling had been understood in this country, and I took it for me, and I put it my personal touch on it. So, Kelly.
Yes, I think it would be useful, perhaps, if anyone has got any comments or any questions, to step in now. I just want to sum what we've just looked at here. I want to sum it up by saying what you've now watched is a very unusual process, because normally as production designers we work with a script. Okay, there's a script that's presented to us, or we might have, if we've been very lucky, we might have been able to be part of developing the story somehow. But usually we're given a script and we create a world around it. Now, production design, because it's such a huge area, some of you might have heard me talk about this before, but I prefer to introduce my students to the 5 levels of production design, starting with the universe, as we've seen here, starting with the big space, the atmosphere, the huge meta landscape, then moving into the architecture that exists within this meta landscape, then moving into the interiors that exist inside the architecture in this world, then moving on to objects, what we often call props in filmmaking, and then eventually moving into the character. All these 5 levels, all these 5 elements together create a visual concept for a production. What we've seen here is that Guillermo has sort of developed a story himself while he has done all this visual research. And visual research, of course, is incredibly important, because it is a way of us communicating with our collaborators. What we've seen here is Guillermo being all those roles, being all those collaborators, being all those disciplines in one. Now, I don't know, before we go for a break, it would be interesting to hear if anyone's got any comments or questions to what we've seen. I can't see the chat, so. If not, should we just push on to, so that you're just able to finish before we go on to, in a way, onto the next level, which is really in this project, working with character. We've got one question there, though, which is a question from Joffe. Is there a script?
Yes, there is a script. One part of the Hello. One part of the story is planned to be a TV series. So there is a script, a treatment for a first season with 12 episodes, or 12 longer episodes, or 6 shorter episodes. And it was developed following like a Netflix template. So yeah, there is a script for that, and then there is a script for a short film, animated short film, but it will be like some sort of pilot of how to tell the story once we go into a TV series format. Yeah.
And I suppose in that context, it's also important to remind ourselves that this complex project is also a project that might exist on several platforms.
Yes.
And what are they again?
Yes, right now it's like TV series, a game, and a VR experience.
So virtual reality experience.
Virtual reality
well.
experience, yes.
And of course, you have made a prototype or a sort of pilot for the VR experience as well, that some of you may have experienced.
Yes, yes. I have another question here. So the script, so the question is, so in this case, at what stage did the script come up? Like I say, I mean, the world building process or method allowed for the story to come from the very, very beginning. It was not a proper script, but it was definitely text that was a first seed a year ago to start to think in terms of storytelling through a script. But a proper script maybe came up right after we finished the production design, or at the end, starting to defining the production design as a whole. Then the script emerged from it very easily, because we had already a lot of work, visual work, where it was easy to see, okay, this might happen here, these events. Yeah.
Okay, I think we should move towards a little break, but we can talk a little bit quickly about what we are going to do when we come back, what we're going to see. Do you want to say something about that?
Yes, definitely. We're gonna see the character in the space. So once we have talked about where the story comes from and visually, so we thought, okay, we have these characters and we need to decide how the space will look like and how to approach it. And we have three sections. One is VR and landscape or environment. The second one is motion capture methods or ways of working. And the third one will be how to do 3D custom design for 3D characters. Yeah.
Great. Okay. We'll take a little break now. Okay.
And we have
Welcome back. In the meantime, in this little break, we think we have fixed Vimeo, so it should be absolutely possible for you to see the next few clips that we're going to show, because we are going to show quite a few different minutes worth of clips in this second piece. So what we have seen so far is we have seen Guillermo here, who's an architect, a production designer, a storyteller, a visual storyteller, really all round, but you also write, showing or introducing us into his process, working with visual references and working up through the use of environment, the use of landscape, the use of topography, the use of space as storytelling tools, creating a story sort of outside in. And by that, I mean, we have now seen, we've seen references for the environment. We've seen references for the architecture. We've seen bits of references for objects, but the next step that we're going to concentrate on now is the character and putting the character or characters of this story into the spaces or the sort of story world that you have created.
Yeah.
So I think we should probably just start by showing the film that you call Descendants Behind the Unreal.
Yes.
And I don't know whether it's a pun, but Unreal, of course, is the game engine that you've been creating this landscape and the world in.
Yes. Yes, we're gonna look at that film, but first, there was a last image I wanna just share. This image is from Roma, and this is a very important part of my understanding of how I work and how I think storytelling works as its best. But for me, this when I was working with the development of this in a very early stage, I understood how. I mean, this image that you saw is so fake, but to not call it in a wrong way, but in a production design way. This is a part of Mexico City in the 70s that doesn't exist at all. Although when you see the film, you concentrate in Cleo, in the main character, and I think that's what we're gonna look at now. That's the point of this hour, to look at how we can concentrate in our characters and have our spaces and our place and our environments at the same time. So this is the clip that we're gonna show. It's the second one in the list, and you're gonna have the link in the chat. It's a 3.5 minutes clip, and then we can come back and keep talking.
But before we see the clip, I just want to say that Roma, the film, can be seen on Netflix, of course, for those of you who haven't seen it.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. See you.
Okay, hopefully you've finished seeing this, and hopefully you were able to see it. What were we looking at? I'm going to ask you this before we move into just talking a little bit about what a game engine actually is. I mean, some of you might, of course, be absolutely familiar with that, but some of you might not know anything about game engines, and I'd like you to talk a little bit about Unreal as a game engine. But first, before that, just tell us a little bit about what we saw there. Who were those people and what were they doing?
Yeah, we just saw part of the work in progress that happened during the end of narrative design, when we had chance to develop our project. And the people that was there was some of my collaborators, that some of them were here are here in this talk in the public. Some of them will come up later, and also some of the technicians working in the school. So all of us together, we come up with this possibility to create a somewhat large team for the scope of the project, around 10 people. And between like costume designers, UX designers, actors, a mime actor, film actor, assistant director, filmmakers. So we create this team of people that was able to come up with a production during a month in the studios here. And the last bit was the VR project that was presented here in the school as some sort of installation where I could replicate Descendants environments, and I call that installation Descendants portals. Yeah.
Great. Okay, so do you want to take us through what a game engine is, or how you have used it in your project? Because game engines in the context of filmmaking aren't new. But what, of course, is very interesting about this project is that we have been working with tools that are often used on huge and very expensive productions in a very small and cheap and sometimes free way. So that is also one of the sort of objectives really about the work that we've been doing and the work that you've been doing, is to find ways of using these big, expensive and complicated and complex tools for ordinary people on a no budget.
Yes. Yes. So yeah, I would like to share my screen now and see if I can share. Yeah. So if you see there, that's the game engine, and that's the character moving. That's the prototype moving through the space. Yeah, and this is how it looks. This, for example, I'm working now at the moment in. You will see bits and pieces of this, but this is some of the costumes that we are creating, and they don't have textures here. But yeah, I mean, beside that, the whole environment is here. This is a 3D in a 3D character. In a way of exploring the space, for example, with a 3D person character game. But this is, you could explore this place with a VR set, and then it changed the experience immensely. My experience, my opinion is that you have to have different approaches to a space, 3D space, in order to understand better the qualities of the space, but also what every space offers for the perception. Because at the end, I think it's a perceptive tool. Well, it's a tool to, it's a perceptive tool, and it's a tool that allows for feeling different perceptions and grades of immersion, I would say. And well, this is it. And then I want to share how the engine looks. If you, you see it there. So if I do this, I know that probably you are looking at a bunch of polygons and lines there, but I think this is an important. This is important to mention that the way to approach a game engine is very similar to the way that you approach a CAD program, which is exploring the space or an object or a construction through different views. And basically that's one side, of course, but the game engine offers so many other possibilities. But that's for to leave it like that.
But what are we looking at there? Those 4 different quarters. What are we looking at?
Sorry. Yeah, you're looking at, for example, there is the landscape, and in the top right, you see the right view of the landscape.
And the section.
And the in section, yes. And what it happens with the game engine is that once you go into a section, you can see the same happening in the other, like a CAD, 3D CAD program. But the fascinating thing for me of Unreal, of course, is that you can have cameras, that you can have camera work, that you can have lights, and that everything is being implemented on real life, on the instant, on the moment, in the and everything is being rendered at the precise moment that you are doing it. So for me, when I saw that coming from perhaps another generation, not the youngest generation, it was revelatory, because I could work doing iterations much faster than before. So this allowed for productivity and more control over the designs. Yes.
And you are also experiencing scale, of course, in a completely different way. And also what we're seeing here is, of course, a tool that has immense opportunities and possibilities for filmmakers.
Yes.
Of course. And maybe the most important thing is that this is free.
Yes, Unreal will start to take a part of the revenues once you have a certain degree of success using their software or their tools. But I mean, of course, Mandalorian, for example, was done with Unreal, and I mean, there are many productions when it comes to filmmaking. So yeah, but I mean, you really have to have some sort of degree of revenues in order for Unreal to start to ask for part of that revenue.
And the idea is presumably partly to altruistically offer this to students. So
Yes,
students can,
yes.
can use it.
Yeah, and it's like a learning, sorry, it's like a learning process of the 20th century that you keep, I mean, of course they do it also because we are gathering knowledge. I mean, every hour I have spent in Unreal is an hour that I'm gathering knowledge for them also, because they are getting more information of what I'm doing. So it's a, I would say that it's a win-win at this moment. Let's see for the future.
Okay, we're moving on to actually seeing the portal itself.
Yes.
Do you want to say something about what we're going to see next?
Yes, we're going to see here. Yes, we're going to see part of the VR project. We're going to see a clip of the installation that we have here in school, Descendants portals. We're not going to see how the person looks at what the person is looking at, but we're going to see a reaction of one of our guests, which was a scenography student of a second year. Brilliant student, by the way, I have to say it. And I think I had like 20 plus guests, but for me, he was one of the most revelatories because he gave me a lot of input of what was about my work. And I just want to show this picture of Petra in Jordan, because this is what I think the VR experience is allowing. For me, it was like going to Petra without going to Petra. It was like understanding its scale in its real magnitude. I didn't know about VR, that could be the potential of VR, but the potential is immense. And I think in these pictures you can really feel the scale of the place and the nature. And I think in VR portals, the people that could experience it, I think they could feel this magnitude of the landscape. So yeah, so this is a clip. This clip is just we're gonna just see the end of the clip, or like a shorter, like 1 minute, 1 minute and a half, and then we can come back. Even if the video is a little longer, it's not necessary to watch it. Just have a 1 minute, 1 minute and a half, and then we are back.
What have we been looking at?
Yeah, we have been looking at about the reaction and the comments of Emil, which it was really interesting. Maybe that, yeah, which it was very interesting for me. The part of when he goes through the portal, and now how physically he's so involved, and like saying comments that this is so trippy that in a way the brain, like a small anecdote, but some people was afraid of height in the VR experience, and there was moments where there was like these huge cliffs, and they were like telling me, but I know I will not fall, but I'm scared. I don't want to come close to that. But this is strange. But they were like rethink about this while having the glasses and the VR set on them, and yeah, I think it's interesting for me about scale and perception, and hopefully we can reproduce the VR project in another moment.
Yes, the installation
yes,
and put it put it back in the studio so that people can experience it.
Yeah.
And of course, there's several levels to the installation as well, not just the forest and the woods that we've seen, but we are in different environments in the virtual reality installation as well.
Yes, and just to finish, I want to just talk about space. And this picture is from my favorite, one of my mentors, Peter Sumter, an architect. But this is a museum in India. And for me, this picture is very important because it's part of how I approach Descendants in a way to explore space from its nature or geographical condition, not just as a site, but more as a part of the planet, and understanding the different levels coexisting in that nature, plants, animals, light, smell, air, and as Peter Sumter talked about this, atmospheres, how to create an atmosphere. And that brings me to character and kind of a strange contrast here. But this is from a movie, from a Mexican movie, Enamorada, from the 50s, from the classical Mexican cinema. This is one of the favorite movies of Scorsese. Actually, this is a clip. This is a still from the restored version that Scorsese did. He put money to make it happen. They showed it on Cannes like 2 years ago. But I think when it comes to character, I'm very it's very close to my heart, the way that in Mexican cinema or the Mexican tradition, which is having these characters that are very strong and very, I mean, you could even say that it's about closer to telenovela, which is some sort of like troupe of Mexico and like a stereotype. But I do think that there is some truth in every stereotype. And I mean, that's at least my opinion. And but that what create that is strong characters in front of the camera, and characters that you fall in love or you hate. Like in this movie, that you fall in love with the guy that is like chasing Maria Felix through the whole movie, or you get in love with her and her posture and attitude. And you can see the costume design here is wonderful. I mean, the colors, the detail, the atmosphere. You don't have to have so many elements, and you already are like transported in time, on time into that part. So having that in mind, I want to show you the beginning of the characters that was done with a software called MetaHumans. And that's a whole new, another 3 hours probably, but I just want to say that it's a software that is in development. Is not even in beta version, it's an alpha version, it's in a testing ground still, but I could get in and design the 3D characters in MetaHuman software.
So what we're going to see is your designs of the characters in this story.
Yes,
that's what we're going to
exactly.
see.
And we're going to see 4 characters. Oscar, living in our contemporary times, whose family from the 19th century is Carl and Cristina, but Carl has an alter ego called Cine. You're going to see a Mexican woman that is a medium living in New York, in Bushwick, that has contact with Oscar and help him through his journey. And that's it. Yes.
You did mention Christina, yes.
Yeah, of course. I mentioned Carl and Christina, and you're going to see Christina, which is our star. Yeah. So now we can see the clip, and this is like a 3.5 minute clip, and then we can come back and keep talking.
I don't know if people are back, but we're back. I just wanted to say, you designed these people.
Yes.
You designed these faces.
Yes.
You designed these. How did you do it? I mean, they look like real people.
Yeah.
And do you want to say something about the likeness of these characters? Do you want to say something about the facial capture, the motion capture of them?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the process to design the characters was very similar to the visual research I had, but in this case it was a bit different. It was more like it was a combination of visual research and casting, I would say. but then I was doing a kind of a 24-hour casting for my ideas and allowing myself to be immersed in the story enough so I could feel what kind of energy I was looking after rather than a look. That's why, for example, if you could, some of the people in the school could recognize John Paul, our collaborator from the research center, which we had a discussion, hi John Paul, we had a workshop from him, and I was just fascinated. It was just marvelous. I was so touched by his work, his methods, his ideas, that I couldn't really take it away from my mind. I was like, I need to, but then I thought like something is resonating so much on me about him, and I understood that it was Carl, and it was Carl because Carl was kind of the necessary redemption of a man, but also a father, a grandfather, a friend, someone that will transcend to history or time, and that I could feel from him, for example, and the same with Christina, and the same with the other references. The only one that didn't come up like that was Rosalia, the Mexican character. And I did something different with her, that it was, I took a recollection of my memories of my mother, and my aunts from Veracruz in Mexico, and I kind of took all the memories together, and that's what it came out. I didn't have any visual reference, and I think I was really surprised for the result. So I'm assuming that it's a little bit like a sculpting. It's like I think it could be something similar to that, the process of that. So yeah, so we could go further now and look at yes. So when we were working with this, we work with face motion capture, and we're gonna look at a clip from one of the workshops that we had here in the school in Stockholm's Konstnärliga Högskola. And we're gonna look at Emma Larsson, an actress and a screenwriter, a filmmaker. She's a young actress, but with a very interesting resume already. She was studying acting in LA for 2 years. She was part of a theater collectives in Sweden also for a period of time, and now she's here in Stockholm pursuing the film career. And we met through another course, but then I thought the same. It was the same with all the collaborators. I invite her. I thought like, we can do something fun, and then her character came up later, the latest. So you're gonna see 1.5 minutes of her character. That is, it's a character that is part of these souls that are wandering the netherworld, and that is part of Oscar's family through time. It's just that Oscar doesn't know it. So they meet, and when they meet, is that happen, this dialogue. So Jenny, please, we're gonna skip Carl just for now, and we're gonna go straight to Emma, if you can, if you're listening to the conversation. So please, all of us follow the link number 6 now.
We want to move straight into costume design, and I think the costume designer that you've been collaborating with is out there.
Yes. So if so I'm gonna talk about costume design now, and how we come up with the prototype for Christina as a character. We had the visual research, a clip of Descendants Behind the Unreal show a moment where we were like 4 people in the room, And it was those sessions that we had together, two fashion designers and pattern makers. And then at the very end come up a third one that joined us. I want to see, yeah. I was very lucky to be able to work with them because they have such a huge experience working with design for very, very important international brands. And I felt like our meeting was meant to be to some extent, and I learned so much from them in those sessions. I took the role of production designer, and we had for me, a very rich in both sides relationship. Very, very, very professional also in matters of learning from each other's profession. And this, if you can see, this is a visual concept for Cristina Ghost, which is another alter ego of Cristina within the whole story. So these are some of the pictures that we were using at the beginning, like because we wanted something light and we wanted something with transparency. I think these pictures were part of our discussion. Then later on, we were like considering, okay, what is the theme behind this design? Like, should it be more like scary or more theatrical or more like maybe conceptual or something more alluring to the senses or something more classy? So we were like considering different paths to take for the overall theme of the costume. Later, part of our character had a crown as a prop, 3D prop. So that was kind of fun. I would say a very fun part of the process. We had the possibility to go more organic, like in the picture in the middle, or we could go more metallic, like in the left, or we could do like a combination of both and have like kind of metallic, organic, almost like Baroque feeling, or like I would even say Gaudi inspired. So later, after these talks and research, the process of the costume was made. At some point, we had also some references of pattern making and how to actually construct the pieces. And then the working process. We did this costume with a software called Marvelous Designer, which is it's a professional tool for coming to prototypes and concepts within costume design. And yes, you can see here the process of thinking how we started, and then how it was developing slowly but surely, coming with measurements and of course creating the patterns and the right, always considering the right tone and what we were looking after, what kind of epoch as well. We were talking about like 19th century, but we have this constant idea of lightness. For example, in this part, I think it's important to mention that Cristina in the 19th century was a farmer. So you can see here in the dress, it's like she has a shorter dress under, because we were considering that, okay, in her ghostly figure, she still is this farmer from the 20th century. So we had this shorter dress just beneath, referring to this time perspective that the characters are going through. And the details and the veil, and it was also this mourning feeling, because character Ghost Cristina is kind of mourning because, well, I haven't mentioned it, but Carl will eventually kill her and her children in the story. So she becomes this kind of like constant and permanent grieving character. And this is a crown on how it was developed. I think since I was having the possibility to work with professional fashion designers, this process was relatively short. Nevertheless, I think that that rather than like using a specific software, I think what it was, put it on practice here, it was like what I told you at the beginning, like concepts about form, about function, about what you want to tell, what you want to convey through a design. And well, in this case, it was very revelatory for us, for both sides, because I haven't worked before with fashion designers, and they haven't had possibility to do custom design for fiction. So it was a process back and forth where we were like discussing the almost like an etymological or like I would say like fundamental questions about design that would come up in the room while we were coming up with ideas. I think this we like a lot. It's very dramatic. At the end, we wanted a very dramatic look for the costume. Yes, and so that's it. And yes.
Are these also the colors you intended?
Yes, yes, yes. And
I seem to remember that there were whites in the references.
Yeah, in the references, in the big one, but I don't know if it was Cristina or Ghost Cristina, because we have two iterations of her. And important to mention also, it was considered to be silk, the dress, and this dress is also, since it was done in from a prototype perspective of a 1-to-1 scale, this is ready for production. It has the pattern, the pattern is done. So we even had a budget, I think it was around 15,000 crowns to make it in real life with, and I think the intended design was with silk, yeah. But for this detail, I think Cristina and Aspar in the audience might help me now. And I want to introduce them. Please take the word. Please, if you could just share what you thought of the process, what you think of the presentation, or any complaints to me also, please, now is the time.
Yeah, I can go first. First of all, I think it's very true what you said, that we work pretty well together. And I think the thing was that we both are designers, or sorry, the three of us are designers, and we all understand this design process. It's always the same. It starts with an idea, a concept, a how-to, and a result. And we were communicating visually. And because of that, I think we could really merge all our expertise. And I think that was quite opening, because it did show all of us that we can all work together if we have this process in mind and we know how to. So it doesn't matter if I'm a fashion designer or a UX designer, as we will see later, or you are a storyteller. But if we have this process in common, we can communicate pretty easily. And that could extend to any kind of design process.
Cristina, surely your processes might be quite different, or was the collaboration that easy?
It was. I think Aspar can fill in, but I think we just got where we got a little bit stuck is for Guillermo to show us really what he wanted, because he could see 5 images, and in his head he knew what he wanted, and he could see some like the one image could be more a detail of the dress, the other could be like the full dress, but for him all of them were relevant, and they were all going through the same idea. But for Aspar and I, was more like we were seeing 3 very different things. So it was more the communication, of course, for him to really pinpoint, I like this of this picture, I like that, and I want to communicate that.
I think, hello all. What I can add to this process, and I can confirm that it was pretty smooth. And I think it was the actual tool that we had, Marvelous Designer, and just the 3D visualization of an object such as the garments. It was so easy and so fast to try and iterate ideas and change immediately if something was not feeling right. So I think that was probably like the tool that actually helped us communicate and execute things quite fast as well.
Aspar, can I ask you a question? A Marvelous Designer is a tool that I've never heard about in a filmmaking context before.
Right.
And I understand that it is a tool that comes from the world of fashion. Is it a tool that you were familiar with before?
Yes. So Marvelous Designer is actually a tool from the gaming industry. So it's character building tool to, customize the outfit for a certain character and so on. And the company saw a potential for fashion designers because they saw, maybe that was like 10 years ago, they saw that fashion designers started using this software. So they actually specialized and created another software called CLO, C-L-O, which is absolutely like specialized for fashion, for like soft, for textile visualization, 3D visualization for textiles. And this is the future of the fashion design industry.
But what I have to ask you then is, I have to ask you to say something about the compatibility between Marvelous Designer and Unreal that you used. Is there one, or why isn't there one if it is software that originated in a gaming context?
Right. This, I believe Guillermo would know better about the compatibility. Did we even try? I don't remember if we actually tried to export files.
Yes, I think it's very interesting to mention it. But first thing, when our collaboration started, I explained the project to Cristina and Aspar, and first question after half hour was from Aspar, okay, give me the body. I want your body. And I say, yes, you will have it quite soon. And then in that moment is when I realized that my body was not suitable for Marvelous Designer, which it was coming from the MetaHuman early access software, which is very interesting because then we understood that we had to go through some of technical software issues where maybe the correlation between parts is not ready there yet. We tried through Maya, but it was not either possible, which it really puts a question there. I think, I don't know what you think, Aspar, but I do think it's also the future for your industry, for my industry, for everyone's, for Christina's industry. But still, I feel like there are some elements there that we have to kind of polish between different worlds. What do you think? I think I imagine this is a matter of time, but
yeah, and I think it's going to happen very, very fast. I'm just thinking, from the perspective of probably fashion design has been or is the final last design industry that has been working in 2D for a very long time, and any other design world, it's 3D has been incorporated for long time. So it's just about to happen, and I mean it's happening. It's probably the freshest revolution in the design world.
Yeah,
I think that's really interesting. I would like you to hold that thought, actually, and you all to hold that thought. I'd like us to take a little 10-minute break, and I'd like us to come back and we can pick up on this before we move on to the next stage, because I think there might be a couple of more things to touch on when it comes to character design and costume before we move on to distribution and platforms.
Yes.
So if we take a 10-minute break now and meet again.
I am really sorry, but I need to jump in another meeting.
Okay.
In 10 minutes. So maybe we can keep it for like a few minutes more, if that's
Okay.
okay.
All right, I get that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So maybe I had a question, Aspar. What about you touch upon visualization? I'm wondering if you can share with us what it make you approach Chloe and Marvelous Designer, because when I met you through Christina, she told me Aspar is working with these tools already. So I would like to, because as you say, maybe it's not the norm in fashion. So what is that you saw in that possibility?
I mean, through my perspective and my experience, it's an enabler. So it enables you to rapid prototype ideas, which means you can expand the ideation process so early on, and then make better choices and actually visualize and make, materialize a certain product or idea way more accurately, because you know that you have tried it, you've seen different iterations, you know what you want, so you can just continue with the clearest idea.
Yeah.
So to me, it's just an enabler.
An enabler, yes. And I don't know if you have an input on
It's
this.
also very, very, I mean, fashion industry, we probably all know that it's not the most sustainable part of our world. And this is an amazing thing to, also decrease consumption and, explore ideas without actually losing materials and exhausting resources that are not infinite.
Mm. So that's a very good point, and also a very relevant point for the film industry as well.
Yes, how is, I mean, I have no knowledge about that, but I'm assuming that there are some issues there as well.
Of course. And what I find here in this building is that students are very, very, very keen to work in a more sustainable way. And we are doing a lot of work to introduce sustainable methods. But of course, it is traditionally an industry that has built and created and thrown away.
Right.
Exactly like the fashion industry, I suspect. But I think it's very interesting, this thing that you come from fashion and Guillermo comes from filmmaking, and that you have been working together, because it's quite unusual, I think. I mean, it is, as at least in the way it's recognized from the film industry's point of view, it's two very different, it's two different fields, really, fashion and costume design. So I think and I hope that you learned something very interesting from each other in this process, and also placing this character, the character that you worked with, the characters that you worked with, into a world for moving images too.
It was great. I think like the collaborative approach was just fantastic, and the exchange of processes and how the different creative fields can actually work together was quite exciting.
Great.
Yeah, and that just 2 comments shortly, but that if I don't have chance to say it in another moment before it's finished today, one part of the project was to explore also these tools and virtual production and new software to see if it was possible to have a more horizontal organization of the workflow of a production and have a less of this like author throne thing being in top of everything. So for me, it was very important to find a base of collaborators and learn from each other and allow to different parts of this team to really come up with this input. That of course I think these technologies, as you say, Aspar, they are enablers of sharing ideas, sharing prototypes, sharing what you have inside easily. And once you trust in the other, then I think it's a good tool. I mean, it could be even a bit of that democratization of the workflows, if I might even use the word.
Absolutely.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Aspa, for coming
Thank you for having me.
and contributing, and Christina as well, who we will see more of in the next hour. I'm suggesting now that we take a 10-minute break. In fact, we meet again at 10 past, so we're 10 minutes after schedule. But what I would like to pick up on when we meet again is a couple of questions that we've had in the chat, and also to connect that to this whole conversation about software, free software, cheap software, and the whole, well, linking to the sustainability conversation as well, I suppose.
Hello, and welcome back to the final bit of this session today. We are now moving on to talking about platforms. And as you will see, Christina and I have swapped places. But first of all, I'd like us to go back to the chat and answer some of the questions that are in the chat. Unfortunately, I can't see them right now, but Guillermo, you will be able to see them, won't you?
Yes. Yes. So the first question came from, I think it was Josephine, and she asked me if why Unreal and not Unity. Unity is another game engine used to develop games mostly. And yeah, well, basically now I have said the answer, because Unreal, it's a game engine that is being developed in order to address different types of mediums and different types of needs. Comparing it with Unity, which I have to say also, I haven't been using Unity so much. I have been using it for briefly, but my experience is that Unreal has better capabilities when it comes to filmmaking, for example, or for virtual production, or also for visualization in general. I mean, they have just released another part of their software, which is called Twin Motion, which is for visualizing architecture. So they are pretending to create this engine that is going to be suitable for all types of visualization or 3D visualization, while Unity, I think, is more specialized for gaming. I think for gaming and for the community of gaming, it might be more suitable also, or also a great opportunity and a great engine. I mean, now I have to say this, I haven't had so many experience with Unity. I know that it's a very fresh community. It's a very vibrant community as well, with people that is very on board. And I mean, that's wonderful. I think it's wonderful that we have different options and engines. I mean, for everyone, and both are for free. So I mean, in this case, for me, I just felt like Unreal was the choice. And also, I mean, it was a software that was introduced for the assignment in narrative design. So maybe Ellie can also, if you want, you can also tell us why you choose Unreal.
It was an interesting challenge, actually, because Unity has a history in our school at SKH and was relatively well established. But because we did this particular workshop and assignment together with colleagues from Luleå Tekniska Universitet, and they use both, their suggestion was, well, why not try another one? Why not work with both game engines, and students can just learn and make up their minds for themselves. And I think that's a wonderful opportunity. So anyway, we went with that. But should we go over to the next question that you've got there?
Yes, Alexander asked or a random thought about motion capture and face motion capture. Yeah, I think it's a very interesting question. Thank you for asking these questions. They're a bit more technical, which I love. I think, well, in the case of the we were doing this with a software called Faceware Studio. And Faceware Studio, what is doing is recognizing the face movements or the gestures. So they recommend that you could put a little bit of makeup in order for the tracking system of the software to recognize better the human gestures. But it's more like almost, I will say that in all theater traditions that you have like makeup to like just to highlight the human gestures. The same with the camera and the software. That's the technology behind. Beside that, there was no any necessity for extra makeup, since this shooting is mainly for purposes of passing it through the software later on. So what we did, it was to exaggerate. I don't know if you noticed it, but the actress was exaggerating a bit the gestures in her face. It was very theatrical. Funny enough, this technology might be more suitable for more theatrical performances rather than film performances. I don't know if that answered your question. And the other question, it was, yes, it is considered to use gravity in the clothes, but as you mentioned, yes, it is a very difficult process. If I have to say, so far in my experience, that is very limited, of course, in games, but I'm learning constantly. Character and costumes it's a so-called pain in the ass. It's a very difficult thing to maneuver. It seems like there is no final solution yet out there. And if there is, it's a solution that requires months and months of work, especially in ZBrush to sculpt the character or the clothes, and then to adapt, to put the gravity on it and the clothing on the hair. So it's a very costly process. But I feel like since we are in that situation, if we want to do more now I'm talking from my perspective, not from the industry's perspective. If we want to explore these tools, we have to do it in a more like filmmaking, indie filmmaking, to adjust the stories to the software and the technology at hand, not rather the opposite, because then you will end up in a cave, kind of in a software cave. Even though that's the name, that's the one of the names of this room, the cave, but you will end up with a lot of issues. So yeah, I hope that that's answering the questions.
Thank you. Okay, I'd like us to move on to what we were meant to talk about in this final what we've got, half hour, 45 minutes that's left today. We are now moving on to platforms, and we're moving on to distribution. And I'd like to introduce again Christina. Thank you very much for coming in and talking with us about this in this final section of the seminar today. You might want to introduce yourself and also talk a little bit about how you've been working together, first of all.
Yes, because I didn't get the chance to introduce myself before, really, went really fast. But I come from a fashion background, and lately or recently I have transitioned into UX design. For the ones who don't know what UX design is, it's basically designing, it comes from user experience. It's designing the experience of the user since from when they open an app or a website until they get to their goal. So for example, if you go to Netflix to watch a video, it's all the screens and buttons that you have to go through in order to get to that video, to that movie, or so. So that's what I'm doing now, and that is more or less what we did together, or how we merge this project.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Are we moving on to actually having a look at an example of a platform then?
Yes. Yes, and I think in some early presentation of the project that we had some months ago at the end of narrative design, I got a comment that this project was kind of the soul behind Descendants. And I think it's I'm very happy that we could close and round up this discussion together, because I do really think that this is something that come up during the process that I didn't have any idea that I would address, which is, okay, the question is, I want to share some screen here. Here. Yes. So the question is, okay, we have this idea to tell a story from a multi-platform perspective, or from a transmedia perspective. Even that's the kind of name or that has been used more recently, but like the last 15 years. But in this context, I felt like, for me, it was not so clear how to merge these different types of mediums and TV series and game, until we start talking, me and Christina, and then we understood that, okay, this is about the user. It's about who is receiving this material, and how is the person that is receiving this material taking it for themselves. And while we were talking, we understood, okay, then we might need to use a definition of a user, and then to create a new platform, because we saw that not necessarily it's out there, a platform where you could do this. We understood that Netflix can do some things, Steam can do other things, but to actually have a platform where you can, like, with a click, jump between a game and a film, that's a little bit still on the process to happen, probably. So the way to approach this was through to create a mechanical puzzle, or that's how I saw it in my mind, and that's what you see in the image there, is some sort of mechanical puzzle where you have different pieces that will come up together, and when you put them together, you will see the whole picture. But that each piece on its own has capability or possibility to tell a story, that you don't need to, because that's one of the issues of transmedia lately. Like, you as a user, you have the feeling that I have to see the game, I have to see the movie, I have to kind of understand the story. But in this case, it was, no, it's not necessarily. But then if you user, the internet-based user, you do the puzzle, then you will have the reward to see the whole thing, and to know that you put it together.
And how did you work together to arrive at this solution?
Yes, and that's where Christina is coming into this, and I'm gonna show the work.
Yes, I think it kind of made sense altogether when we realized that if he's doing something that involves so many medias, and it's such a big concept, so it just makes sense that on the next step in the the distribution, why not also put it all together? And since this doesn't exist yet, that's how we came up with this, like just trying to find a way to show and for the user to find it. So that's how it all started, as Guillermo said, this puzzle, this square that you saw up there, and a little bit the concept ideas, and then we can go to this one. Here you can see a little bit how we imagine this user, how we know it's now. It's a passive user. Basically, they can't do much. They just watch series, they watch movies, they play video games on the other side. But what we think it will happen is that the user will become more interactive.
nowadays, for example, when we want a new series, we ask friends and family. We don't. So we wanted to, for example, integrate this and just make it available for the users to put their thoughts, their comments, and share them. So that would be one example of how to make it more interactive.
Yeah, yeah, and we understood that like if you see in the active in the left, in the right side, very important to understand that interaction with content and with others was a main feature. One platform, one world, like not to really achieve one place, and the use of portable devices as in the future, right? That we see that it's gonna be the norm. Probably.
Yes, we kind of took this user that Guillermo was forming from his project into the real world, and how do we imagine in general that it's going to be in 10 years. So we kind of, and that's how this project kind of became a mastodon.
Yeah, and it was like, okay, now we have to kind of go and look at which one you want to.
That one.
Then we were like, okay, well, we need to see how the industry is doing it, what's happening out there in the different platforms.
Yes.
Yeah.
And for example, as you can see, we compare some streaming platforms and some game platforms. And so all the green colors, for example, they are all kind of the same. They are trying to convey the same message. So yes. And what we saw is that they were kind of similar, all of them, even the gaming ones. So that's how we kind of started this, the new platform, how it would be, because we could merge things that were the same in both kind of users. And that's how that would be like an easy approach for the new ones.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. Yes. And then we did these conclusions, right? Like.
Yeah, so what did they have in common and what did they not have in common? What things we would have to take in and bring with us and what not? So, or pain points, possible pain points. It's a brainstorming here.
Yeah. So after that, we come up with a template.
Yes, so very general template of how it could be, and then possible things to put in to make it as clear as possible. Also, because since this is going to be such a big thing, it's going to be serious VR gaming. So just keep it simple. And that was our proposal so far.
Yes, and one important part of the process here was, if hopefully you will see it here with themes, because we understood that maybe the audiences of the future, for example, you have here, if you will look for theme, you have race, you have transformation, identity, borders, reality, and freedom and destruction. So what that means is that you will have a platform where like content is not being organized as all traditional genre, like drama or comedy, but you will rather have projects where the theme is the most important, no matter if the project is a VR project or a game or a TV series or a shorter series or a very long series. The point is that you want to explore race or sexuality or identity, or and we thought that some of these themes could be very contemporary for what we saw in the studio, also of the different platforms.
Yes.
Guillermo.
Yeah.
I think there are a couple of very interesting questions in the chat that you might want to have a look at now. I don't know, Josephine, are you there? Would you be able to ask those questions yourself?
I have to see them. I will just look at them.
I can. Josephine is there. She might ask the questions herself.
Yes, please, Josephine.
Sorry. Hi. Now this part really it's super interesting to me. And I'm always curious because with transmedia projects that we've seen in the past, producers usually talk about it being a huge problem to migrate audiences from platform to another, especially if you move between like a lean forwards experience like a game when you're very actively involved, and a lean backwards more passive experience like watching a film. And how do you what incentives would you put in the narrative or in the experience, the user journey, to facilitate that, so that you don't lose too much of an audience between, the shifts between platforms? And also, what spaces are there for the story and for the audience to interact with the story or make it their own, play around with it? I'm very curious if you have any ideas around that.
Yeah.
I can answer part of the first question maybe, and you can actually show the one up because we
Which
did
one?
that one.
Yes.
We did think exactly the same, like how do we merge them and how do we migrate them? So the first thing would be to to define a user, like the user that watches movies or that is more like streaming, and the one that plays video games, and then find the point where they meet, and then from those kind of extrapolate, and then find a way to go to the other side through that one, if I'm explaining myself. And one of these examples kind of would be what you're seeing now, maybe the one up actually. So for example, the game. I'm a person that has never played video games. How do we make him or her go into this platform or this exact video game? So one way would be to just as simple as using your phone as your device to your remote control, and with very simple things that you can do, like back and forth and sides and okay, no, that even I can do. So that would be like a way of simplifying and a way in, like opening a door to this gaming platform.
I just want to add one last thing before I stop sharing the screen. And if you still have your link open, but I would just like to share Lori comment about Descendants in the review from other users. And then she says, yes, Descendants is ridiculous, arguably pretentious, pinning for your attention like a 6th grade emo kid. And I love it to pieces. And she's giving 4 stars to the project. That's all.
Great. I think that's a great note to finish this presentation on. And I thank you very much, Christina, for coming in and joining us at the end of this day. And Guillermo, your final comment.
I'm sorry. It's just that I see that that Mehdi came back. He couldn't join before, but he was working as together with me in the development of the project. I wish he could give us some words about what he thought about working in Descendants before we finish. Please, Mehdi, if you can just share with us your thoughts about it.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, well done.
Sorry, I had another meeting at Stockholm University, and my name is Mehdi Razi. I'm a filmmaker and studied cinema SÖ, and it was a very pleasure to be involved in this project as a cameraman and as a director assistant. I think I and Memo, we don't know each other for a very long time, maybe a little more than 2 years, I think. But we became closer each other very soon because we had a lot of common thought and opinions. I think it's very important in a creative process is absolutely very important to understand each other, to feel each other. And in this project, I think we did it. I don't think, Memo, how long time I have, or if there is any questions about something, or
yes. No, I think we were just rounding up now for today, but I want to mention that your input has been such an amazing add also for the team behind it. It's a very international team. I mean, I think everyone comes from different parts of the world. Christina, me, Aspar, you, Charlotte, the acting support, everyone. So we really have this multicultural team. I mean, really, I think that's one of the cores of the project.
Yes. And I think probably also that's something that we experience when we see it, and when we're in it. And I'm sure this will become even more apparent when we get the opportunity in the near future, I hope, to enter into the VR experience. Thank you very much, Megdi, for being able to add yourself to this group at the last minute.
Sorry,
We're just about to finish off, but thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's been great to get an idea of who the collaborators and participants in this project has been. And of course, thank you very much, Guillermo, for sharing your incredibly ambitious and visionary ideas, plans, your process, inviting us into the process. There's so often that people are cautious about inviting people in at a stage before things are finished and before we see a finished result. So this is very, very interesting. And also very interesting to see how your different methods of research has made it possible for people to enter into this creative process. Also, of course, very interesting to hear when it's been hard to communicate, even though one thinks that one has shared very clear both directions and visual references. Thank you very much for this. And I'd really like to get back to this project in the future, not in the not too distant future, because I think there's a lot more work that's being done and will be done on this project. So thank you very much, everyone. And
thank you, and thank you everyone for the questions, for the comments, and for the presence, for taking this time of your life to see this, to see our work, and I truly believe in sharing knowledge. I really do. So thank you, Ellie. Thank you for the university for the opportunity to be here to add to the knowledge, to the common knowledge and passion and creativity that we have all. And yes, thank you.
Great, wonderful. I have been told, just to add to the few people who are left in the room, that next week's seminar will be starting at 2:00, not 1:00 as usual. Thank you, everyone, for coming and sharing with us today. Goodbye.